The tradition continues. Hello everyone, my name is Graves and welcome back to my YouTube channel for my annual upload, and once again it's going to be a Worlds preview video because I'm very unoriginal. Fight me. Because the year 2020 can suck, but hey, it all leads up to an actual good thing happening at the start of 2021, so we take those? So once again, if you haven't watched any of the previous year's Worlds preview videos, I'm going to be going over every single team that'll be appearing at this year's Smite World Championships, this time all in one convenient location because I'm not making a separate video for placements, it's literally just 4 best of 5s, and I'm going to be talking about all 10 teams going into Worlds this year, how I think they'll fare, and at the end, I'll even give you a prediction as to who I think's going to win. So, with that out of the way, let's get right into the format. The event as a whole starts on January 5th with the placement stages. Between the 5th and 6th of January, there will be 4 best of 5 matches, which will include the bottom 6 teams from the Smite Pro League and the winners of the North American and European wildcard tournaments. The third seed in the SPL, which is the highest seeded team at this stage, chose their opponent, Mind the Gap, the NA wildcard representative, with the 4th seed getting the other one. The 5th seed would play the 8th seed, and the 6th seed will play the 7th seed. From there, the winners of those matches will play each other in best of 5 quarterfinals on Friday. The winners of those matches will play the 1 and 2 seeds in the SPL on Saturday in the semifinals, and the winners of those matches will play each other in the finals on Sunday to crown a new Smite World Champion. First up, we have the winners of the EU Wildcard Tournament back in December, Beltslap. Now, it's not necessarily surprising to see this team here, as all 5 players have a plethora of experience, both the SPL level and the SCC level. However, what was surprising was that they were made to bleed during the Wildcard Tournament. Beltslap for most of the year were seen as the gold standard in the EU SCC. However, in their finals against Snake Pit, they were pushed to their limits. So the question for Beltslap now is this. They've done good against their European competition, but how can they do against an SPL caliber team in Renegades? Whereas Beltslap were the expected team to make this stage of the dance, Mind the Gap were anything but. Not to discredit this group of 5 players, but most people looking at the NA wildcard tournament would have either favored the number 1 team from the SEC, Get a Grip, or the number 1 open circuit team in Spreed, which contained 2 players who had played in the SPL this season. Instead, the team that is basically the spiritual successor to last year's Hype Unit Xbox roster comes to the World Championships once again. And if this team can perform anything like that team did last year, anyone who they face will have to be on their toes and not underestimate the boys from console. However, SSG is going to be a tough task regardless, as they've looked strong all year in the regular season. The good news for Mind the Gap? This is more like a playoff scenario where SSG has looked downright abysmal. Can the NA wildcard do the impossible and pull off the upset? To say that this year has been tough for Obey Alliance would be a bit of an understatement. Not even including everything that's happened outside of the SPL, including a change in ownership, the team has quite simply struggled for most of the year. The less to be said about the start of the season, the better. To put it bluntly, Obey Alliance this year has taken up the mantle held by Space Station Gaming last year, a team who always starts strong and looks competitive to win games or sets, only to drop them as the games go later. And that's not to say there's no hope for Obey. The pieces of this team have talent and experience in high-pressure situations. The good news is, since they haven't played in 2 months, there's been plenty of time for the team to think of new strategies and possibly get out of the funk they've been in all year. The question is, can they do it in time against a Sanguine team who's likely out for blood? I think it's safe to say that this has been the worst year for EUnited's fans during their 4 seasons in the SPL. After Season 5, this was a team that wasn't used to losing, but after a mediocre Season 6, the team has taken further steps back in Season 7. I'm always under the belief that making roster changes when they're necessary can be a good thing. However, EUnited have tested that belief in my opinion, by making almost too many roster changes. I feel this is best exemplified by the fact that they've played with 4 different supports over the course of the year. However, things are looking up for the red, white, and blue, as their most recent group of changes have given the team a very underrated support in Gino and some good leadership in Baskin, though his play has been a bit sus. If the team has used their time off wisely and has made the improvements that showed up as flashes near the end of Phase 2, this team could potentially try to pull off what last year's 7th seed did and win Worlds. Speaking of last year's SK Gaming, next up are the defending world champions themselves. I feel like for this group of players, finishing in a mediocre position in the regular season is par for the course. While this may not be the exact same team that won Worlds last year as SK, they only made one change of Sam leaving and Cubo Fred coming in. I would have thought that would have led to a better performance in the regular season, which it did as they finished 4th in Phase 1 and 5th in Phase 2. However, back-to-back quarterfinals exits in the phase playoffs simply isn't ideal in the long run. However, at the end of Phase 2, until they flamed out in playoffs, PK showed form that reminded me of their Worlds run from last year. If this team gets hot, the rest of the league needs to be on notice, as they could just mess around and go back-to-back, a feat no one has done since Energy Esports did it back in Season 3. Next up are the pride and joy of Latin America and the team which every former international region is going to hitch their wagon to, Sanguine Esports. To be honest with you, I was very torn on Sanguine at the start of the year, mostly because I did not know how they would perform. However, as soon as they started playing games, I realized that they were a team to be taken seriously, and they've proven that all year with top 3 finishes in both splits, including winning Phase 1. Additionally, most of these players, sans Yorkor thanks to visa issues, have been here before, and 2 of them have beaten NA teams at Worlds before. Season 3. However, their performance in the playoffs in general has been less than ideal. The Phase 2 playoffs in particular left a lot to be desired, allowing them to be leapfrogged in the standings by Renegades. But just because Sanguine are coming off a weak performance, they shouldn't be counted out as a potential dark horse of doing something no team outside of North America or Europe has ever done: winning Worlds. Renegades are a tale of 2 teams. Sometimes they look like one of the hottest teams in the league, pulling off upsets, insane comebacks, or just straight up looking dominant against some of the best teams in the SPL. Other times, they're straight up outclassed by their opposition and are never able to come back into games. I feel this is most personified by Lazra. If Lazra's on point, Renegades will at the very least go down fighting, but will more than likely pull off the result they need. If not, the team's doomed. Another player personifies the, dare I say, RNG nature of Renegades is Jake. The rookie support can both look phenomenal and also make some rather disastrous decisions. However, they're coming off a great performance in the Phase 2 playoffs, seeing them leapfrog both PK and Sanguine to reach the top 4, giving them a matchup against an SCC team in the placement stage. A lot of these players have been here before, plus the organization as a whole has some unfinished business from last year. Can Renegades pull off their biggest heist yet of snatching the title? Few teams have been as consistent in the regular season as Space Station Gaming have this year. Last year, 4/5 of this roster as Renegades ended their season getting reverse swept by the eventual world champions. And, in the regular season at least, the team has shown they're here to play with back-to-back second place finishes. This has been spearheaded by Nika having easily the best year of his career and possibly one of the best years for a solo laner ever. However, like some other teams in the league, their weakness has come in the playoffs. Between the Phase 1 and Phase 2 playoffs, SSG has not won a single series, and has only won 1 out of their 7 games they've played, which is a bit uncharacteristic for a team with this much experience, especially one so good in tournaments last year as Renegades. For SSG, many of these players are hungry to finally claim their first title, but Raffer's looking to make history in what could be his final year. He's already won 2 championships. Can he win a third and cement his legacy? If there's one thing that Radiance has proven across this entire season, it's that this team will come to play when it matters the most. Sure, this team has been inconsistent throughout the year during the regular season, but has been the perfect example of a team who has came alive in playoffs, making it to the finals of both the Phase 1 and Phase 2 playoffs. The problem for Radiance is their record in those finals: 0-2. The Phase 1 finals was a back-and-forth 5-game affair which they ended up losing, but the Phase 2 finals? They got swept. However, if there is one solace, Radiance is stacked with people who knows what it takes to win this tournament. Benji, Cyclone Spin, and Aurora have all won Worlds before, and while BMT's never won, he certainly is hungry to do so. But the main story belongs to adapting. Like his former teammate Raffer, he's also won 2 titles, and like Raffer, this Worlds is likely going to be his last. Can the Adapt King assert his dominance at the top of the SPL one last time? Simply put, Ghost Gaming are the favorites going into this event. They won the Phase 1 and Phase 2 playoffs and have simply looked nigh unstoppable for most of the year. However, if there's one thing that we've learned over the years in Smite Esports, is that at Worlds, the expected doesn't always happen. The last consistent so-called best team in the league to win Worlds was Energy back in Season 3. Every time since, the event's been won by a team who got hot at just the right time, but who wasn't necessarily the best team all year. Ghost are looking to buck the trend, and by all means, they have the squad to do it. This basically is the same rival squad that made the finals last year after all, and the only change they made was adding in Sam, who won last year of SK. Fine OK is still one of the best solo laners in the league, PandaCat and PBM are making the argument for the best duo lane of all time, and Sam's been an absolute monster this year in the SPL. But to me, the big story of this team is Captain Twig, moving back to the mid lane after being a jungler for 5 years. He's looked really good all year and it's all led up to this moment, where Twig can finally break his curse of making every world championship, but never winning one. This is by far the best chance he's ever had. To top it all off, Ghost has inherited the past of Rival, a team who made the World's Finals 3 consecutive times and lost every single time. Can Ghost overcome the ghosts of their past and win a title? So with my basement tier analysis done, let's get into my predictions. Let's start with the placement stages, and I'm starting with Renegades beating Beltslap in the first best of 5. I think it could be interesting how Beltslap might perform against an NA team, but I just think Renegades is the better team overall, and they'll take the W here. Next up is Sanguine versus Obey Alliance, and I have Sanguine winning this matchup. I just think Sanguine straight up outclasses Obey, and I don't know if Obey's going to be able to fix all the problems that they have. I think Sanguine's the better team, and they will get the result here. Moving on from that, we have Space Station Gaming versus Mind the Gap, a matchup which I think SSG is pretty well favored to win, and I have them winning this. Mind the Gap could maybe make it interesting, maybe take a game or two, which would be a bit surprising, but I think that SSG ultimately is the better team and should get the job done, barring a massive upset. Last but not least, we have EUnited versus the Pittsburgh Knights, and this matchup really is a toss-up. You could probably play this match 10 times and have a different winner almost every single time. I have the Knights winning this matchup because they've just been the more consistent team throughout the course of the year. But if United comes in hot, as I mentioned during their entry, they could maybe make a splash here. I just think the Knights are the better team overall. They have shown more experience at this level overall and have shown more success at this level overall. So I think the Knights beat United and move on to the quarterfinals. Moving on to the quarterfinals prediction, my first prediction is going to be seen as a bit of an upset. I have Renegades beating Sanguine, and this is mostly just based off of in my opinion, the fact that Sanguine has kind of struggled a bit, especially compared to Phase 1, the fact that Renegades has looked pretty good, especially in the Phase 2 playoffs, and these two teams met each other in the Phase 2 playoffs in a series which Renegades won. And I think that momentum will continue to stay that way for these two teams, so I have Renegades making the semifinals. As for the other quarterfinal between Space Station Gaming and the Pittsburgh Knights, SSG are just a better team overall. PKs usually reach their sort of stopping point this season in the quarterfinals, and I don't expect that to change here at Worlds. I have SSG moving on to the semifinals. The semifinals I have going in a pretty boring fashion in a way. I have Ghost Gaming beating Renegades, and I don't expect that series to be close, though if there is an upset in that series, it does not matter who Ghost loses to, that would be a legendary upset. On the other side of the bracket, I have Radiance getting the job done against Space Station Gaming. SSG has pretty much fallen apart most of the time in the semifinals in the phase playoffs. Radiance has always shown that they can be red hot come playoff time, and I don't expect that to be any different going into Worlds. And this leaves me with my finals prediction, and I'm going a bit bold. Call me biased, because yes, I do love Radiance, but I think Adapting gets his third. I think Radiance wins the World Championship. My brain tells me to pick Ghost, and I don't blame anyone who does pick Ghost, but my heart's telling me to go with Radiance, and I'm going with my heart, even if it means that I'm going to be disappointed at the end of all this. So that's about going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll probably see you all again next year when I do the exact same thing.